Hello, my name is Sarah, and I am your chakra coach. On this podcast, we'll be exploring how the chakra system can help guide you to grow your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, leading you closer to your highest self. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're having a great day, a great week. That's always my hope for you, of course, but I know from experience that not every day or week is great. And if you're not having a great moment, that's okay. I've had a rough couple of weeks myself, being way too busy, way busier than is really healthy for me, forgetting my self-care, which for me leads to burnout, bad moods, and all kinds of other things that, for the most part, I could avoid if I took care of myself in the first place. Tell me if that sounds familiar. Or sometimes it's been so long since we took good care of ourselves that we've forgotten what it feels like to feel good, or that it's even possible. So many of us are just living from a place of anxiety and depression, and we think that's normal. We all have different levels of these feelings, of course, but most of us do have some room in our lives to create space to feel better. Last week, I talked a little about health as a value, mostly physical health, since we were talking about the root chakra. And that's part of feeling better, taking care of our physical selves, but also our emotional, mental, and spiritual selves. We split it up, but it's really all one thing. And when we don't tend to one part or another, our whole self can begin to fall apart or deteriorate. And that's where this talk about values comes in. Our lives are a reflection of what we value. And this is true whether we like it or not. It's one of those it's one of those moments where we can get a little uncomfortable because we have to really honestly look at ourselves and our lives. And for me, the past couple of weeks, I wasn't living my values, or at least not all of them, and it shows in my life. And this is the hard work of the chakras and values. If I'm going to say that health is a root chakra priority for me, a true value, then that's the lens I need to look through when making my decisions. And for the past few weeks, I haven't been. That's really what a value is, and why it's so important that we talk about them right now. They're a lens, a filter to use when you're making choices. Does this choice contribute to my values, or does it not? When you look at your life right now, at what's in your life, you can see what you value. I was putting other people's opinions ahead of my health. My false belief that my worth is somehow determined by my productivity ahead of my health. So now I'm spending some time getting realigned with my root chakra value of health. Will my action support my values, or will it not? That's my personal example from the past few weeks, and I share it only because I think it might help some people to see how the practice of values works in real life, and how real life will reflect what you value. But the good news is we can select our values, we can explore our values, and then make a choice to live into them. A good way to start is by selecting a single value, maybe one for each chakra, maybe one that you'll work on each week of this series, and consciously use it as a filter for your decisions. And notice if you're moving closer to embodying that value or farther away from it. I was moving farther away from health, and focusing on my root chakra value acted as a course correction, the guidance to move back to my path. We all stray. It's not really a big deal, but we need to be clear on what is important to us to provide that roadmap. And of course, I love the chakra system as a framework for that. So we'll get into sacral chakra values this week, keeping in mind what we just talked about. knowing that your life is a reflection of the things that you have given the most importance to over time. And if it's what you want it to be, amazing. Keep on. And if it isn't, allow this work to focus you and bring you back to where you want to be. Reviewing what the sacral chakra governs, it's primarily our emotions, relationships, and reproduction. So you probably won't be surprised that the values that live here are around those topics. The first one I want to talk about is relationships, because I know that many of us value our relationships above all else. And that can be romantic relationships, partnerships, family, friendships, children, all of the people that we have some connection to. This is a massive value for a lot of people. And if we're being truly honest, it's an easy one to put at the top of our lists because it is so acceptable, so widespread. It feels good to talk about family and relationships. And we know that the vast majority of people respect that as a value. And that's because relationships are genuinely important. Strong social connections are a pillar of well being, happiness, contentment, and a sense of belonging, which is also a sacral chakra value. I mean, what an important value to have. If you're thinking, yes, relationships are at the top of my value list, then it's time to take the next step and look at your life to see if you're really living it. Do you spend time nurturing your relationships, spending quality time with people you love? Or is there another way that your relationships thrive and you put your energy into that? Are you happy with and in your relationships? And if not, are there actions you can take to prioritize them in your life so that you are? I was listening to a woman do this exercise, and over time, this value prioritizing exercise, and over time, she realized that although she counted family as her absolute top value, she lived halfway across the country from them, and that just wasn't enough for her or her family anymore. So she made the decision to move closer to them. That might be extreme or impossible for some people, but that was how she decided to really live into her value, to connect with her sacral chakra and put those relationships first. And it was right for her. As you explore here, you'll find things that are right for you too. Can I tell you what's not right for a lot of people, women that I work with? They value relationships so much, they value the idea of relationships, and they stay in unhealthy ones or ones that will never provide the connection they're looking for because the other person doesn't value relationships like they do. There are all kinds of connections, all kinds of relationships, and each one has a different type of give and take. And you need to be comfortable with the balance you have in each relationship. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, a partnership should average out to about 50-50. People giving to and taking from the relationship equally. Not at every moment, but overall. In a parent young child relationship, the parent might be giving most of the time. And that's okay because that's what that relationship is. It isn't that the parent doesn't get anything out of the relationship, but it's a primarily giving relationship. Friendships vary wildly in my experience. I have some friendships that really are 50-50, and those are my personal favorites. They're the easiest and the happiest. But I have others where I give a little more and some where I take a little more. The point is that if you value relationships, it shows up as a top core value for you. It's worth diving into whether your life shows that. We can say we value family, but are we spending more time away from them than with them? Are we escaping relationships through avoidance or numbing out? Or are we really committing to the connection? Just think about it. There's not a right or wrong answer here, at least not one that I can give you. Your relationships have to serve you and the other people in them. Strong relationships and connections help balance the sacral chakra, which is important for emotional regulation and emotional health. And if this isn't a top priority or value for you, that's okay. It isn't for everyone. That doesn't mean anything about you in either a negative or positive way. And don't feel like you have to have this as a value. It doesn't mean that you don't care about your relationships or that they're not strong or that you don't have emotional health. I can't stress enough that that's not what it means. It means you have other values and things that matter to you, and that is 100% perfect. And if you put this on your list because you feel like only a monster wouldn't have family as their top value, try to let that go as well. It's not true. This is about you, not some societal expectation. And honesty with yourself will get you a lot closer to who you want to be and a life you love than forcing something that isn't true to you.
This summer, your next adventure is waiting for you in Colorado. Here, dreams feel bigger, and everything shines just a little brighter, no matter where you are. Whether you're relaxing in a quiet mountain town or exploring a vibrant city, new discoveries are waiting for you around every corner. Come to Colorado. Come to life. Learn more at colorado.com/summer.
The second value for the sacral chakra I want to talk about today is creativity. Creativity is a human impulse, I think, and for some people it's very strong. Artists of all kinds, anyone who takes their ideas and puts them out in some way, these are all people who value creation. And it sits so beautifully in the sacral chakra because of its connection to reproduction. And we always think of reproduction as offspring, babies, but literal children are not the only way to leave a legacy. And that's kind of what creation is about, or it can be. Taking a part of you and making it manifest, even if only for a brief moment. Art is an easy way to see this, but it could also be a new way of doing something at your job, creating a new system or program. Even if you just sing a silly song to your dog that lasts for a moment and is never heard again, that's creation. A conversation is a creation. How important is it to you to create things? For some people, it's extraordinarily important. They create entire human beings, or they paint, or write poetry, or designs, or however their creative spirit shows itself. I would also say that activism is a part of this because you're working to create a new world. When you have an idea, how important is it to you that you act on it, that you do something with it? If you're driven to do that, creativity may be one of your core values, a deep down, non-negotiable part of who you are. I'll tell you something funny about this one for me. I wouldn't say that creativity is a top value for me, but I'm really only happy and living my proverbial best life if I'm creating something. This podcast, for example, or creating yoga sequences. I love to create things in the world and share them. I'm moved to do so, and that's part of how I balance my sacral chakra. Even if this isn't a value of yours, you may find that engaging with creativity is a good way to find sacral chakra healing and emotional healing too. And the last value I want to talk about today, and like I said last week, I'm certainly not addressing every sacral chakra value that exists in the world. So if I didn't touch on yours, it doesn't mean it isn't valid, just that this episode can't be 4 hours long. But the last one for us together today is pleasure. The sacral chakra contains sensuality, which we always think of as being sexual, but is really just physical pleasure through the senses. Looking at beautiful things, hearing moving music, smelling something uplifting, tasting comfort foods, touching something soft or smooth. These are sensual pleasures, and they're firmly seated in the sacral chakra. And for some people, feeling pleasure in their lives is a value. It's a little different than happiness or even contentment, which might also live in the second energy center, but they don't have to. Pleasure and sensuality are more physical experiences because of their location in the lower chakras, are chakras that deal with things primarily on the earth. And I love this as a value, partly because I think so many of us are conditioned to shun pleasure, especially if we were raised in a puritanical environment. To enjoy our senses is to put intellectual or spiritual pursuits second. So we forget that physical pleasure is important. Again, not just sexual pleasure, physical. A hug, petting a cat, going to a museum, looking at art and letting it move you. Have you ever known someone who, with just the sound of their voice, makes you feel safe or happy? That's sacral chakra pleasure. And as a society, I'm not sure that we do value it all the time. It's easy to let it drop off the list of things that matter. It doesn't have to be your driving force if it isn't, but stepping into this value once in a while is probably healthy for our sacral chakras. And research shows that it's good for our overall health and well being as well. And if it is a core value for you, embrace that. Love yourself for how in touch with your body and emotions you are or are becoming. Of course, we don't want the pursuit of pleasure to cross the line into addiction. Addiction is the pursuit of sensual pleasure despite negative consequences, and it's often associated with a sacral chakra imbalance. And I know that isn't everyone, of course, but I always like to mention it because if that is something you're struggling with, there are ways to get help beyond just sacral chakra work. Professionals are vital to recovery. But if that isn't you, pleasure, just like creativity, is a human impulse that, when used with intention, can be an incredible tool for healing and personal growth. I have a dear friend who, after years of challenges and trauma, has finally claimed pleasure as her primary value in life. And it has changed her in all the best ways. She has never been happier or more in touch with herself or had more self-love and self-respect. Maybe that's you too. Or maybe you're more like me and you have to remind yourself regularly to prioritize pleasure, even if it isn't a key value. I think most of us sit on a scale with all of these values, and there are times in our lives when we need to pull something forward in importance. This series is also a great chance to do that for yourself. That's going to wrap up sacral chakra values. Of course, there are so many more. So see what's important to you that might fall into this area. Is there a sacral chakra value in your life that doesn't necessarily get top billing, but might improve your life? Like I mentioned, for me, that's creativity. Even if it isn't at the top, I value it. And knowing that about myself helps me prioritize it and use it as a tool when I'm not feeling balanced or healthy. Or maybe your top priority does lie in the sacral chakra. Look at that and be sure your life choices reflect it, that you're really living into your value. That's what this whole series is about. Being sure that the choices we make are the ones that take us where we want to go, toward health, toward wholeness, toward healing, wherever you're going. Let your core values be the light. Let them be the key that keeps you on the path or guide you back when you've lost it, which is so easy to do. Who are you? Your values will tell you that, and then allow you to go even deeper into yourself. I'll be posting about it more this week on Facebook and Instagram at Your Chakra Coach, so please join me there. You can message me, of course, and I do try to get back to every single person that sends me a message. Or if you're more comfortable, email me. I'm at sarah@yourchakracoach.com. If you're enjoying this show and find that it is helping you in your life, share it with a friend. Let's spread this message of living into our values, balancing our energies, and creating the world that we want to live in. We can do it, but it will take all of us, each of us doing the internal work so that what we value manifests in our physical reality. It's the surest way to create change. Until next time, you beautiful souls, I wish you nothing but the best, and I so look forward to seeing you again. Bye.